Have you ever felt like you stumbled on something so real, so raw, it almost takes your breath away?
Oh, absolutely.
That's what this deep dive feels like, honestly.
Yeah.
We're going beyond Sylvia Plath's poems, setting those aside,
Okay.
and we're diving into her quotes.
Right.
Those unguarded pieces of her, those flashes of thought.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like getting a peek behind the curtain, right?
It really is.
Beyond just the label confessional poet,
Exactly.
which gets attached to her so often.
It's like we get to meet Sylvia, not just the poet,
Right.
And where better to start than this? I am. I am. I am.
Oh, powerful.
Such a simple statement, but
It's so simple, but so powerful, right?
it's fierce.
It is. It's defiant almost,
Yes,
Especially for when she was writing mid-20th century.
it's a statement.
Imagine being a woman then,
Yes.
trying to be a writer.
Trying to be taken seriously.
Yes, an intellectual force.
Yes.
Those 3 words, they weren't just existing.
It's a claim.
It's staking a claim in a world that wasn't ready.
And that hunger for experience, she craved it.
Oh, absolutely.
She says, I want to live and feel all the shades, tones, and variations of mental and physical experience possible in my life.
It's exhilarating and terrifying all at once.
It is. That push and pull in her.
Totally. She says, I am a victim of introspection.
It's like a confession almost.
Right.
Yeah.
Like she recognizes that inward pull.
But then she craves the world.
But the vibrancy, the messiness, it calls to her.
She doesn't want to miss a thing.
Exactly. It's that classic, wanting it all.
She owns it, though.
Yeah.
It's not just fleeting passion with her.
No, not at all.
She says, but life is long. And it's the long run that balances the short flare of interest and passion.
It's deeper than just intensity, isn't it?
Much deeper.
There's thoughtfulness there, a sense of the long game.
Yes, exactly.
Life's a marathon, not a sprint, and she knew that.
Right. And we can't forget her humor.
Oh, she was witty.
She says, nothing stinks like a pile of unpublished writing.
That's hilarious.
Anyone who's tried to write knows.
Oh, absolutely relatable.
Or that story about her poem, Rain.
Oh, yes. Rejected.
Because everyone writes about rain after it rains.
Classic.
It's those moments that make her human,
Exactly. She's not this untouchable figure.
She had insecurities like the rest of us.
She did, and she found humor in them.
Yes. And that's what makes her so compelling.
It's that blend, vulnerability and wit.
Yes, exactly.
She invites you to laugh with her even when it's hard.
Right. And speaking of hard, we have to talk about this one. If neurotic is wanting 2 mutually exclusive things at one and the same time, then I'm neurotic as hell. I'll be flying back and forth between one mutually exclusive thing and another for the rest of my days.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
It's like she's talking directly to that confessional label,
She is. She's defying you to pin her down.
It's more than just sadness.
Way more.
She's grappling with existence, with contradictions.
Exactly. The messiness we all feel but don't always say.
And she does it with humor.
Self-awareness, too.
She owns it all.
She does. Think about some of the other things she talks about. Politics, motherhood.
She even compares loving people to a stamp collector.
It's fascinating. Her world was so much bigger than just tragic poet,
So much bigger. And her connection to nature, especially the ocean.
Oh, the ocean was huge for her.
She called it her childhood landscape.
Which makes sense with that story of her almost being swept away as a kid.
Powerful imagery, right?
Yeah.
Symbolic almost.
Absolutely. The ocean's power, vastness, it left its mark on her.
It did. And she describes it, the sea, as the clearest thing I own.
Wow.
In the midst of all her internal complexity.
The ocean was her grounding force.
It's like we're just starting to understand who she was,
We are. That's the beauty of these quotes, though.
They're pieces of a puzzle.
Exactly. Each one a glimpse into a different side of her.
Challenging our assumptions.
And revealing a woman of incredible depth and complexity. It's interesting, though, isn't it?
What's that?
That push and pull, those contrasting forces. It wasn't just her life. It comes through in her writing, too.
Oh, totally. Like she couldn't escape it, even in her art.
Exactly. On the one hand, she says, poetry at its best can do you a lot of harm.
Whoa.
She knew the power of language, of the emotions it evokes.
Yeah, for both the writer and the reader.
Exactly.
It's like poetry was this dangerous thing almost.
Right. Capable of creation and destruction.
But then she follows it up with, God, God, God. Where are you? I want you, need you. The belief in you and love and mankind.
Wow.
This yearning for something bigger.
It's like she finds comfort in that tension,
The darkness and the light.
Absolutely. And that's what makes her work so timeless, I think.
It's relatable even now.
We all feel those contradictions, that push and pull.
And she really grappled with those contradictions, especially when it came to gender roles, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Especially for the time. That quote about men being arrows and women the place they shoot off from.
Wow, yeah. What a man is an arrow into the future, and what a woman is the place the arrow shoots off from.
Powerful imagery.
It really is.
The expectations on women back then to be the home, the starting point, not the adventurer.
And she struggled with that. You can see it in her writing about motherhood, too.
Oh, for sure. A baby. I hated babies. I, who for 2.5 years had been the center of a tender universe, felt the axis wrench and a polar chill immobilize my bones.
This is so raw.
So honest.
But not the romanticized version of motherhood you often hear.
No, not at all. This was her reality.
And she refused to let those roles, wife, mother, define her.
She was too complex for that. Remember, a pile of unpublished writing.
Always.
Even geniuses doubt themselves.
That's comforting in a way.
It's part of the process. And she was very aware of the challenges for women writers.
Especially at Cambridge, right?
Yes. Her observations of the women there, calling them grotesques.
Like something out of Dickens.
She had such a sharp wit. Wasn't afraid to point out the absurd.
Even in those hallowed halls of academia.
And then there's that line, I've begun to think like a Jew, to feel like a Jew.
Heavy stuff.
Especially for the time.
Post-World War II, the Holocaust still fresh.
And for her, an American woman, to identify with that persecution.
It speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Her empathy, her willingness to confront injustice.
It's like her world was expanding, going beyond her own experiences.
Exactly, towards a broader understanding of suffering, of resilience.
And she brings it all back to such a personal level, you know? Motherhood.
Right, it's like it woke something up in her.
Like her awareness of the world's problems intensified.
Exactly. When she talks about her daughter's first real adventure being a protest against the insanity of world annihilation.
Powerful stuff.
Motherhood wasn't just personal for her, it was political, global.
Like she couldn't separate those things.
Exactly. And this all ties back into her as an artist, her dedication.
Because she was intense about it, wasn't she?
Absolutely. Poetry, I feel, is a tyrannical discipline. You've got to go so far, so fast in such a small space.
Yeah.
You've got to burn away all the peripheral.
She was so driven, so committed to capturing the truth.
No distractions. She knew what mattered.
She found beauty in it all, even the dark parts.
She did. And speaking of beauty, the way she wrote about the senses, so vivid.
Oh, absolutely. Like that quote, I saw the goose flesh on my skin. I did not know what made it. I was not cold. Had a ghost passed over. No, it was the poetry.
Poetry was a physical thing for her. You can almost feel it.
You really can. That's what makes her so amazing. She makes you feel it too.
That's the honesty, the vulnerability. It resonates even now.
It makes you feel less alone, you know, like your struggles aren't unique.
And she does it all with that distinct voice, personal but universal.
A powerful combination.
She owned it too. Since my woman's world is perceived greatly through the emotions and the senses, I treat it that way in my writing.
She knew who she was, what she wanted to say.
And that confidence that makes her work timeless, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's like she's opening a door into her soul and saying, come on in. Let's explore this together.
And maybe that's what we all crave, isn't it? That connection, that shared experience. Remember what she said, how we need another soul to cling to.
So after this deep dive, after all these glimpses into her world,
Did you feel it? That connection? That glimpse of the soul behind the poetry?
I think I did. And I have a feeling we'll be returning to those words, those glimpses, for a long time to come.